Welcome back. Last time we took a look at how to make selections inside of Adobe Photoshop, and then we took those selections and made selective adjustments. Now, we also have something inside of Photoshop called select and mask. Essentially, it's the same thing that we saw before. So what they've done is they've grouped in a couple of the tools. They've given us some refinement tools, some output tools, and the ability to use two different algorithms when we make those selections. Let's slide on over to Adobe Photoshop and take a look at Select and Mask. Today we're going to take a look at Select and Mask inside of Adobe Photoshop. Now normally I would process images inside of Lightroom Classic and the Develop module a little bit before I go in there, but just so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of skip the Lightroom process and throw those images into Adobe Photoshop. Now the main focus of today is going to be Select and Mask. However, there are a few other ways to make selections inside of Adobe Photoshop. So I'm going to quickly show you those before we go into that program. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this image, hit Command E, that will throw that into Adobe Photoshop. So we have this image here, and last time we learned, there are some selection methods over here on the left-hand side. However, if you come up to select, we have select by color range, focus area, subject, and sky. I don't really use these much, except for in a rare occasion, I use sky. So it's simply, you would select sky, it's going to analyze the sky, and we could simply make an adjustment from that location. I'm going to hit Command D, that's deselect. You'll also notice that select subject is down here in the contextual taskbar. You could simply just select that and it is automatically going to select our subject. I'm going to hit Command D and undo that. So that was select, and we have these different options here. We also have another option when it comes to sky. We can go to Edit and go down here to sky replacement. Now, I probably wouldn't do this on this image, but essentially what happens is if you have a flat, boring sky, you can come into sky replacement. It's automatically going to recognize the sky. And then we have some different skies that we can select with to put into this image, or you could simply just upload your own image into this and apply that. Down here, there are some adjustments for this process. We can output this in two different ways, but in this case, we're going to come back to this another time. I'm going to hit cancel, but just so you know that that does exist. So select and mask is right here, and depending on the different selection method that you choose, select and mask is always going to be in this top bar, but in a different location. So I'm going to go ahead and select and mask, and essentially this is just a little plugin that is optimized for making selections in photos. You can use the other methods, or you can use this one, or you can use both. It really doesn't make a difference. This just has a lot of the best options grouped into one area. What we're going to do is actually go to the right side first instead of the left side. So if you notice, it has this kind of yellow overlay on it, and that is because right over here we have this view. And we have the ability to view as onion skin, marching ants, or whatever we want. Here are the different options. I'm going to click overlay because that's what I want. We can change that color. If you don't like red, you can click on the color red, pick any color that you want, and that will be your overlay. So mine is set at 50%. Down here, we can save some presets. If we want to save some presets, we are not going to be doing that. Down here, we have a refinement mode after we've made a selection or for making selections. One focuses on the object and the other focuses on color. So if you try to make a selection and it doesn't work perfect, maybe color aware would work better. Then you can just select color aware. It will reanalyze the image, make another selection. And you can pick whichever one works the best. Over here on the right-hand side, we have brushes that we already had in the toolbar. There is nothing new over here. So right here, we have the quick selection tool. This is a refining edge brush, just a simple brush tool, object selection, the lasso, and the lasso has the polygonal lasso located underneath it. Up here, we have select subject. Its drop-down menu is for using the cloud or the device. You should always use the cloud when making a select subject. It uses AI and makes a better selection going off site. And then right here it says refine hair. So this obviously isn't going to be useful in this image, but if you had selection of hair, and it could be on an animal, and it makes the selection, it does a better job of selecting that hair by clicking refine hair. We used to have to just go here and apply it to a specific location. So this is simple. We can click on select subject and the computer's going to look at the photo and easily make a selection. Is it perfect? Well, it really depends on what you want, right? So we are seeing the selection is just a clear normal area. When you use select subject, it is not using a feather. Actually, all these selection methods do not use a feather by default. Even the lasso, as we see down here, this doesn't use a feather. However, we can modify this selection. So I'll just take Command plus a couple times so we can see this image a little bit better. And if we come over here, we have what's called global refinements. And these global refinements refer to the selection that's made and essentially the edge. So do I want to smooth that? I can smooth that out. I don't usually use that a lot. I can feather it. So if you remember, we've taken a look at what feather does. So I can increase my feather and you can see it's softening that edge and blending it out to the sides. Slide that back. I can increase the contrast. So actually, if we leave that feather there and I increase the contrast, it's going to give that edge a harder edge, but still have a little feather, but it's going to harden that edge. We could smooth that out as well. Any combination, what you're trying to do is make the most accurate selection. All right, so we are back to the original selection here. Nothing in the global refinements has been selected. So we'll come in here and just add a little bit of feather. So what I want you to see is right now we're going to take this and we're going to shift the edge to the left. And what that does is shift the edge into the subject. So you can see right here where it's overlapping. If we go to the right, it's going to shift that edge outside of the sheep. So you can essentially just sit here and really kind of refine what you're doing. So a lot of times you might get like a really strong feather like that and it's overlapping your subject too much or not coming on your subject enough. We can grab this slider, slide this slider in, or slide that slider out to shift that edge appropriate for what we want to do when making that selection. I have a new image up here for us, and I'm just going to quickly go over the different options that we have up here. Obviously up here, it's select subject. You select that, the machine automatically analyzes, and just like that, it makes this selection. This is actually really good. Usually, this is all I need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Z to undo that. The next one that we have up here is the quick selection tool. So the quick selection tool, you can control your brush to make it larger or smaller, and you just start to paint over your object, and it kind of tries to detect edges and make a selection. Sometimes this can be beneficial, like if it misses an area in the select subject or something like that, but it is nowhere as accurate as usually select subject is. You can see we kind of got it here, but we didn't. Usually when you're using this, I use it with a combination of other tools. We also can add and subtract. So up here we've got a plus and a minus. So if you want to subtract from the selection, so if I want to take this area out, I can go ahead and paint over it. So it just looks at the area. Depending on the size of your brush is how big of an area it will look at. So the next option is the edge refinement brush, and actually let's use that quick selection tool. So let's go ahead, I'm going to make this a little bigger. We're going to come in here, we're going to try to select this bird. I'm just doing it really rough and quick because I don't want it to be perfect. So with the edge detection brush selected, you need to come on over here to edge detection. You can manually adjust the radius, and it's the radius it's looking at, like in pixels. Usually I just do smart radius because yeah, that's just easier. And I try to make my brush about the size of an area that I want to go over. So all I'm doing is telling, hey, look at this edge right here. There's something there I want you to include in it. And this was really designed for like frizzy edges. So if you have like a frizzy edge and you wanted to pick something up a little bit more, you can do that. So yeah, it's getting the edge, but I can see it's not getting it perfect. It's like semi-translucent. And that's what this is really good at, edges, not detecting in the middle. So if you look here, you can see it's a little bit magenta still there where I went over it. So these areas are going to be semi-translucent. It's not selecting them 100%. So I would need to go and select them 100%. I could just use the brush for that. So right here, we've got that brush. I can control my brush size. And in this case, I need it to be smaller. And this is just going to be like 100%. So I'm just, whatever I brush over, it's going to give me 100% of the selection. We can control our brush hardness and softness up here. So let's go ahead and reset that. Next is the object selection tool. And the object selection tool is just going to analyze any image that you have. And you can see right here, it's noticing the background, but when I get over that bird, it recognizes the bird. So I can select that bird and it's going to make a selection of that bird. Now this is a little bit different. Up here, we've got add, subtract, and intersection of the selections. I just use the quick keys. So if I want to add this bird, I'm just going to hold the shift and it's going to add that to the selection. If I want to remove a bird, I'm going to hold the Option or the Alt key on a PC, select that, and it's going to remove that from the selection. That's essentially all you need to do. And as you go around the screen, you can see it's picking up the background. Anything that it recognizes as an object, it will let you select. So in this case, I've used the object selection tool to select those two birds, and then I could simply come over here to the right to apply that. So the last tool here is the lasso tool. Right up here, we have the option for add to a selection, subtract, and intersect with the selection. Unlike the lasso tool in the toolbar, the lasso tool allows you to apply a feather to it. Now you can apply a feather to it over here, but it doesn't have that little number input that you get. And as I said before, you have the polygonal lasso tool underneath it. And this is simply just a free-form selection tool. So whatever I would draw, it would apply that. If I want to add a feather to that, it's adding a feather. But notice it added a feather here and it added a feather here. That is the lasso tool. The move tool, I'm just going to zoom in here, allows us to get the hand and move the image around. And the zoom tool allows us to zoom into an image. So if I click this and I go to that eye, if I left click and hold and then scroll, it's going to zoom into that point where I started the click. And so that is the zoom tool that we have there. Let's go ahead and reset this down here. We're just going to come up and just grab one of the selection tools, hit select subject so we get that subject selected. The last thing that we have is decontaminate colors, and this is really for, like, if you think of an image on a green screen, a lot of times if you try to select out the green screen will actually reflect the color green on the skin of the subject and it looks bad. If you had like a red shirt on underneath your chin, you would see some red. So that can help remove some of that color cast. That's what decontaminate colors does. In this case, what we really care about is selection. Over here, we can output in a couple of different ways. As a selection, as a layer mask, a new layer with a layer mask, a new document, and a new document with layer mask. This is actually super helpful. Normally, when I'm doing an image like this where I'm making a selection, I'm going to output as a selection because I'm just going to hit selection and go here. I want to make a curves adjustment layer. So what I want is the mask to be applied to the layer adjustment. So I output this as a selection. So over here on the right hand side, it automatically creates that mask for me. Let's just go ahead and undo that. We'll go back into selected mask. We output as a layer mask. I'll show you what will happen. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And it's getting rid of the background because it's applying that layer mask to this image, which is a little bit different. So the layer mask is great for when you're trying to put a mask on an object, but when you want to make a selection and then make an adjustment layer, you want to output as a selection. And we'll go into the other reasons later on, but you do have a lot of options when it comes to output of that selection that you've created. This is what selected mask does inside of Adobe Photoshop. It doesn't do anything different than what we've seen before. It does add the object and colorware selections so you can refine it depending on the type of image that you're trying to make a selection from. It groups a couple of tools together so you can use them all together, but we have all the same options over here on the right hand side of the toolbar. If you found this video helpful and could give us a thumbs up, that would be great. Don't forget, we do have a Facebook page, Shutterbug Academy. If you ever run into issues or you just want to show your images, you can slide on over to that Facebook group. It allows you to post images or videos and get feedback. I also post all my new videos on that webpage. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day.